I think one of the first real indications that my wife had a serious problem, and I realized it was bigger than just myself and the two of us, was when she got her first DUI. It was a very dramatic experience, and I can really remember like it was yesterday. My car had broken down. I was an outside sales rep. I had an insurance brokerage, and we did a million miles. I can't remember what happened to the car, but I had it towed to the dealership, and I called her up to come pick me up, and it was about 45 minutes away. And it was only like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I remember calling her up, and she didn't sound quite right, but you know what? I didn't care. I needed somebody to come pick me up so I could, get back home and start making phone calls again and carry on with my day. And I thought the least she could do was pick me up in the middle of the afternoon. Well, she said she would be on her way, and I waited. And it was, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 6 o'clock, an hour later, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I kept calling and got no answer, no response, didn't pick up the phone. I left message after message, and I was starting to get extremely stressed out. And eventually I walked down the street, got something to eat for dinner. By 8 o'clock, she still hadn't showed up, and there was no phone call. And I realized something terrible had happened. At this point, I had no idea. But I kept calling, and then I realized that, by then it was the sun was going down. I was not in the greatest part of town, as the dealership was in another town called Corona, right in Corona, Norco, and that area, not one of the best areas at night. And I was starting to get nervous because the dealership was closed at this point. So I was standing in front of the dealership, and I waited another hour and a half, and I really didn't know what to do. At one point, I was going to walk back to our corporate office, which was about a mile away, and I had a way to get in. I was like, maybe I was asleep in the office. And then I called my son. At the time, he was only about 13, 14 years old, and he was getting scared because now he was home alone. And I said, has Mom been around? He goes, no, I haven't seen her all day. So I even figured she had gotten in an accident or something horrible that happened. At this point, she had never had a DUI, but I had no idea. And believe it or not, by 10 o'clock, I don't know why, I still waited and hoped that she would show up. But by then I'd left, 20 messages, and it was just really an exercise in futility. So I ended up calling one of our good friends that lived around the corner, and I actually had my son Griffin walk up the street, and he stayed with them because he was getting scared. By 10 o'clock, he was home alone in a dark house. He was old enough to be by himself, but he was getting uncomfortable, and I was getting pretty furious about the whole situation because we hadn't heard from my wife all day. So eventually, I had my friend come get me. He worked all day too, and he had to drive 45 minutes to come get me, and another 45 minutes home. At 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I ended up getting home about midnight, and there was no one home. I think what the scariest thing, for family members is just the not knowing what happened. You can assume maybe there was an accident, but there were no accidents, reported. And I looked at police reports. You can do that online. Found nothing. But one thing I did notice is that there was a checkpoint about, maybe a mile from our house, 3/4 of a mile from our house, a DUI checkpoint. I didn't really think of it at the time, but I realized, maybe that might have been the problem. And the next day I actually went to sleep that night. I'd had enough. By 1 o'clock in the morning, I was exhausted, frustrated, very, very concerned. But I said, there's nothing I can do at this point. And 7:30 the next morning, the phone rang, my cell phone, and I picked it up, and obviously it was Amanda, and she said that she had had a DUI, and I was like, are you kidding me? Where, when? At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you were drunk enough to get pulled over? And she goes, yes, let's talk about it when I get home. I don't feel very well. And I'm like, so now I'm going to go run over and get you? Really? It was just the insanity of it all was really the first big indication of what was to follow, really, for the last 6 years of her life. And from there, I quickly went over to get her because I really wanted to see what she had to say more than anything. And when I picked her up, she was sitting on the front bench and her head was down, and I could tell she was just very hungover. I mean, her face was all red. She was going through some definitely hormonal issues because she had thyroid problems. And it was just a horrible sight to see. And I got her to come in, and she just said, "I got caught. They got me." I'm like, "Well, why were you drunk at 1 o'clock in the afternoon?" I'm like, what is going on with you? I mean, and I realized that this was probably her daily activity at this point. I just wasn't privy to it all the time because I wasn't home that much. And I realized at this point, this is when we put her in shortly thereafter her first rehabilitation facility, her first detox rehabilitation facility. And I realized, looking back, that was probably 10 years too late, because at this point, she was very, very well far down the road. And it was unfortunate that it took a DUI to finally get her into a rehab facility. So if you have family members and you think that they need help, get them help much sooner. Don't wait for them to have legal issues, because the problem happened long before that. In fact, most people who do drive, and they've been driving drunk for 10 years before they actually get a DUI. So I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. Again, I go live Monday through Friday right around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And again, the Facebook group is called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. Link is in the bio. You can go right to the link. Takes you right to it. Sign up for it. And then when you're ready to work with me one-on-one, I have a coaching program. Takes about 45 minutes to an hour. Set up a breakthrough call. Again, link is in the bio. I've helped thousands of families, and I'm looking for people who are ready to change their lives and the lives of their family. And again, thanks for listening.